Tonight, we are witnessing a moment of transformation, a moment that reaches far beyond diplomatic niceties. The arrival of Mark Carney in the United Arab Emirates is not just another foreign trip. From the first handshake to the red carpet reception, the message was clear. Canada's ambitions are shifting, and the UAE sees a fresh partner. In a world where global capital and geopolitics increasingly intertwine, this is more than bureaucracy. It is strategy. At its heart, the UAE's sovereign funds are not merely spectators. They are active players in shaping infrastructure, energy, and economic futures. This is a pivot for Canada, and perhaps a rewiring of how middle powers engage global finance.
What's at stake for Mark Carney is the beginning of his entire strategy to try and diversify Canada away from the United States. That starts with seeking major capital investment in the Middle East. He's in the UAE, but also continuing to build the diplomatic relationships that he's had to resuscitate since taking over for Justin Trudeau.
Carney landed in Abu Dhabi at a time when Canada's economic architecture is changing. For decades, Canada relied heavily on the United States as export market, as trade partner, as nearby geopolitical anchor. That era is not over, but it is evolving. Canada sends roughly 75% of its goods to the United States, and any shock in that relationship resonates deeply. Now, Carney's mission is to broaden that base. The UAE trip signals a pivot from dependency into diversification, from familiar alliances into new alignments. What does this mean? It means Canada may start to build major infrastructure backed by foreign capital, perhaps even outside the United States supply chain. The UAE, often described as the capital of sovereign wealth, holds trillions in investment potential. It has mastered the art of deploying funds to build energy export corridors, to leverage infrastructure as geopolitical leverage. It does not invest in marginal ideas, it invests in scale. When Carney arrived, the reception was not ceremonial. The UAE treated him like a partner whose arrival matters, whose access to Canada's vast natural resources, infrastructure projects, and energy corridors is valuable. The message: we see you, we are ready to act. That posture changes how Canada is viewed by those with capital and by those who watch who can deliver. What is at stake in Canada's case is not a minor project but a generational one. Imagine an export pipeline reaching the northern coast of British Columbia, or a sprawling carbon capture project in Alberta, or energy and infrastructure systems that link Canada to Asia rather than simply to the United States. Once such projects move from possibility to contract, they alter the country's negotiating posture, its economic map, its strategic heft. Carney has floated these sorts of ambitions, describing a major oil pipeline to the British Columbia coast as highly likely to be designated a national project. When you combine that with interest from sovereign funds in the Gulf region, the scale becomes tangible. For the UAE, the visit is not about charity or goodwill, it is strategic positioning. Supporting Canada's infrastructure and energy build-out means strengthening a country that can operate more independently of United States volatility. In turn, that creates a partner whose economy is diversified, whose access to alternative capital gives it options. That kind of partner is valuable in a world of rising power competition, fractured trade alliances, and unpredictable diplomacy. The UAE knows this. The world knows this. Canada may be on the cusp of recalibrating its place in that system. But this shift also comes with complexity. Canada must reconcile ambitions in energy and infrastructure with climate commitments and domestic balance. A pipeline project or a carbon capture initiative will involve significant capital, regulatory frameworks, indigenous partnerships, and environmental scrutiny. Canada's move toward mega projects raises questions of who pays, who profits, who bears risk, and how benefits are distributed. In the UAE's view, they want projects that deliver outcomes. For Canada's view, they must deliver public legitimacy. The intersection invites tension, but also a rare opening. Canada's diplomatic style under Carney is evolving. Past administrations focused heavily on idealism, on narrative and global image. Now the narrative shifts toward execution, results, and scale. Carney himself came from a background in central banking and global finance, not typical for a Canadian prime minister. That matters because the vocabulary shifts from "we aspire to build" to "we will build." The visit to the UAE is not just a milestone, it might be the moment the strategy transitions from blueprint into motion. The reading of body language on the ground in Abu Dhabi suggests the UAE is serious. Their sovereign funds control vast assets. They have long sought large-scale projects where returns and strategic influence meet. And for Canada, this is the first time in a long while that it is offering that kind of project. Canada has sometimes been described as a cautious partner, with projects delayed, shelved, or subject to endless review. The new messaging: Canada has projects, Canada is ready, Canada is open. The implications for sectors such as energy, infrastructure, artificial intelligence, and healthcare are significant. Let's zoom in on energy. Canada is home to some of the world's largest oil reserves and vast infrastructure potential. But many of the existing export routes funnel through the United States or face regulatory and market constraints. A new pipeline corridor to the Pacific and beyond would open a new era, one where Canada might export crude, natural gas, or processed energy products to Asia, diversify beyond North America, and assert stronger global trade terms. Canada has publicly supported a multi-billion-dollar carbon capture system in the Alberta oil sands as part of its infrastructure agenda. Think through the ripple effects. Thousands of jobs, billions of dollars of foreign investment, shifting long-term revenue streams, different trade relationships, new geopolitical leverage. The infrastructure side is equally profound. Large projects require long-term financing, deep capital, international coordination, and risk management. Sovereign wealth funds in the UAE are comfortable with that. They willingly commit when the scale is right. For Canada, attracting such capital means navigating domestic governance, ensuring pipeline approvals, permitting frameworks, and indigenous agreements are aligned. The synergy here is not automatic, but promising. Canada's ability to present something real matters more than ambition. The UAE's signal was clear. Bring us the scale, bring us the clarity, and we will back you. Now let's pull in additional dimensions. The bilateral relationship between Canada and the UAE already touches trade, security, and resettlement cooperation. The UAE was a key partner in Canada's settlement of Afghan refugees in recent years. Their investment into Canadian sectors such as metals has grown, and they import large quantities of Canadian agricultural products, often re-exported to other markets. These present existing frameworks onto which the expanded agenda can mount. The timing of Carney's visit also matters globally. The world is undergoing realignment in real time. Supply chains are shifting, alliances are fluid, capital is mobile. The United States remains central, but its reliability as a trade or diplomatic anchor is under question in some spheres. Countries like Canada that depended heavily on the United States may feel the need to hedge, to open alternative corridors of investment, trade, and diplomacy. The UAE sees the opportunity in that moment. For Canada, this is not just smart, it may be necessary. Yet there are risks. When foreign sovereign capital enters national infrastructure, issues arise around ownership, influence, operational control, and public perception. Canada must safeguard sovereignty, transparent governance, environmental and social standards, and long-term public benefit. The challenge is to harness the investment without compromising national interest. The UAE's motivations, while strategic, may not always align perfectly with Canadian public expectations. That requires careful calibration. Looking ahead, what could this partnership produce? If a major pipeline is approved and backed, it could shift Canada's export map from being reliant on one major neighbor to being multifaceted. It could reduce vulnerability to trade disruptions, tariffs, or political frictions. It could open new markets in Asia. It could enhance Canada's negotiating leverage with the United States. In energy markets, it might redefine Canada's role from regional exporter to global supplier or partner. On the infrastructure side, bridges, transit corridors, carbon capture hubs, each could reshape communities, jobs, and the economy for decades. The symbolism of this moment is also powerful. Carney arriving in Abu Dhabi and being treated as a partner rather than a courtesy visit conveys to domestic and international audiences that Canada is ready to play a more dynamic economic role. For Canadians watching, it signals ambition. For investors watching, it signals opportunity.